Part 1. The day Armin felt invisible. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, nobody notices you? Like your voice disappears in a crowded room. Like your dreams don't matter to anyone. This is the story of a boy who lived that reality every single day. And the moment he finally decided to choose his own direction, everything changed. His name was Armin. Armin grew up in a small town where people believed one thing: follow the path others choose for you. His father wanted him to become an engineer. His uncle wanted him to join the family business. His teachers wanted him to study only what would bring money. But nobody asked Armin one simple question: what do you want? And slowly, Armin began to believe that maybe his opinion didn't matter. Maybe his dreams were not important. Maybe his life had already been decided by others. Part 2. The boy who always said yes. Armin was known as the quiet boy. The boy who never argued. The boy who always agreed. If someone asked him to help with homework, he said yes. If someone told him to do extra work, he said yes. If someone insulted him, he stayed silent. People thought he was kind, but the truth was different. Armin wasn't kind. He was afraid. Afraid that if he said no, people would leave him. Afraid that if he spoke his truth, people would reject him. So he kept saying yes to everyone, while secretly saying no to himself. Every day he felt a strange emptiness growing inside him, like a compass spinning without direction. Part 3. The dream he never shared. There was one secret Armin kept hidden, something nobody knew about him. Every night when the world went quiet, Armin would sit near his small desk. He would open his old notebook, and he would draw mountains, cities, roads, adventures, dreams. Armin didn't just draw pictures. He imagined stories. He imagined traveling the world, creating art, telling stories that could inspire people. But whenever he thought about sharing his dream, a voice inside him whispered, "People will laugh. Artists don't make money. You are wasting time." And slowly, he began to hide his drawings deeper and deeper, as if hiding them would protect him from disappointment. But deep inside, a fire still burned. Part 4. The day everything broke. One afternoon at school, something happened that Armin would never forget. The teacher asked students about their future careers. One by one, they stood up confidently. "I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pilot. I want to start a business." Then the teacher looked at Armin. "Armin, what do you want to become?" The classroom became silent. Armin's heart started beating faster. He knew the answer. He wanted to say it. But before he could speak, someone from the back laughed. "Sir, Armin doesn't even know what he wants." Another voice said, "He just follows everyone." The whole class started laughing. Armin felt his face burning with embarrassment. The teacher sighed and said, "You must learn to choose a direction in life." Those words hit Armin harder than the laughter. Choose a direction. That night, he couldn't sleep. For the first time in his life, he asked himself a question that changed everything. Why am I living someone else's life? Part 5. The old man at the bus stop. The next morning, Armin left home early. He walked aimlessly through the town. His mind was full of confusion. Finally, he sat down at a quiet bus stop. Next to him sat an old man with calm eyes and a gentle smile. The old man noticed Armin staring at the ground. "You look like someone carrying a heavy question," he said. Armin was surprised. "How did you know?" The old man chuckled. "Because I carried the same question when I was your age." Armin hesitated but finally asked, "How do you know which direction to choose in life?" The old man looked at the road ahead and said something Armin would remember forever. Most people spend their lives walking in the wrong direction, simply because they are afraid to walk alone. Armin listened carefully. The old man continued, "Self-worth begins the moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself." Those words hit Armin like lightning. For the first time in his life, he wondered if maybe the problem wasn't his dreams. Maybe the problem was that he had never believed he deserved them. Part 6. The decision. That evening, Armin opened his notebook again. He looked at all the drawings he had hidden from the world. For years he believed they were meaningless. But now something felt different. The old man's voice echoed in his mind. "Choose your own direction." Armin picked up his pencil. And for the first time, he didn't draw what others would like. He drew what he loved. It was the beginning of a journey. A journey not about success, not about money, but about something far more powerful. Self-worth. Choose your own direction. A story about self-worth. Part 2. When you finally start listening to yourself, sometimes the most powerful moment in life is not when the world believes in you. It is when you finally believe in yourself. But for Armin, That moment didn't come easily. The night after meeting the old man at the bus stop, Armin sat quietly in his small room. The yellow desk lamp cast a soft light across his notebook. Outside the window, the town was silent. Most people were asleep, but Armin's mind was wide awake. The old man's words kept repeating in his head. Self-worth begins the moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself. For years, Armin had been asking permission for everything. Permission to speak. Permission to dream. Permission to exist. But tonight, something felt different. For the first time in his life, Armin asked himself a question he had avoided for years. What if I stopped waiting for approval? He opened his old notebook slowly. Page after page was filled with drawings he had hidden from the world. Mountains touching the clouds. Lonely travelers walking unknown roads. Cities glowing at night. And people standing alone but strong. Armin looked at those drawings and realized something strange. Every picture was secretly telling his own story. A story about someone searching for direction. Someone who wanted to break free. But fear had always stopped him. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of disappointing others. Armin closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he whispered quietly to himself, maybe it's time to stop being afraid. The first small step. The next morning, Armin woke up earlier than usual. His parents were surprised to see him ready before breakfast. His father looked at him and asked, "Why are you up so early?" Armin hesitated for a moment. Normally, he would say something simple and avoid attention. But today he said something slightly different. "I want to try something new." His father raised an eyebrow but didn't ask more questions. After breakfast, Armin packed his bag and left the house. But instead of walking directly to school, he stopped by a small park near the town library. This park had an old wooden bench under a large tree. Hardly anyone came there in the morning. Armin sat down and opened his notebook. He started drawing. Not carefully, not perfectly, just freely. His pencil moved quickly across the paper. For the first time, he wasn't worried about making mistakes. Minutes turned into an hour. The sun slowly rose higher in the sky. And something amazing happened. Armin felt peace. The kind of peace he had never felt before. Because for once, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply being himself. The voice of doubt, but peace doesn't last forever when doubt lives inside your mind. As Armin packed his notebook and walked toward school, the familiar voice of fear returned. "What are you doing? This is pointless. You should focus on real things. People will laugh at you." These thoughts attacked him from every direction. By the time he reached school, Armin already felt smaller again. In the classroom, his friends were discussing exam results and career plans. One boy proudly said, "My brother works in a big company in the city. I will join him after college." Another said, "My parents already decided I will study medicine." Everyone seemed confident about their future. Everyone except Armin. He quietly sat down and opened his textbook. But his mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about the drawings in his bag. Then suddenly something unexpected happened. The teacher walked into the class carrying a stack of papers. "Students," he announced, "next month our school will host a talent exhibition." The classroom filled with excitement. The teacher continued, "Anyone can participate. Music, writing, painting, speaking, whatever talent you have." Armin's heart skipped a beat. Painting, drawing, art. For a moment he imagined something impossible. What if he joined? But immediately the voice of fear shouted again. "Don't even think about it. You will embarrass yourself. You are not good enough." Armin lowered his head and stayed silent. Like always, a strange coincidence after school, Armin walked slowly toward home. As he reached the same bus stop from yesterday, he saw the old man again. The old man smiled when he noticed Armin. "Well," he said, "did you find your direction yet?" Armin laughed nervously. "Not exactly." The old man tapped the bench beside him. "Sit. Tell me what's bothering you." Armin sat down and explained everything. The drawings, the fear, the talent exhibition, and the voice in his head telling him not to try. The old man listened quietly. Then he asked a simple question. "Tell me, Armin, what is the worst thing that could happen?" Armin thought for a moment. "People might laugh." The old man nodded. "And if they laugh, will your life end?" Armin smiled slightly. "No." The old man leaned forward. "Then let me tell you something important. People laugh at 3 types of people." Armin looked curious. "Which ones?" The old man raised 3 fingers. "Those who fail, those who try, and those who succeed." Armin frowned. "That's everyone." The old man smiled. "Exactly. Which means no matter what you do, someone will always laugh. Armin sat quietly as the meaning slowly sank in. Then the old man added something powerful. So the real question is not whether people will laugh. The real question is, will you allow fear to decide your direction? Those words hit Armin deeply. For years, he had allowed fear to choose everything for him. His silence, his choices, his future. Maybe it was finally time to stop. The decision that changes everything that night. Armin returned home with a strange mix of fear and excitement. He sat at his desk again, but this time he wasn't drawing randomly. He was planning something. He wanted to create one special drawing, a drawing that represented his journey. A lonely traveler standing at a crossroads. 3 paths ahead, one crowded with people, one dark and uncertain, and one empty but filled with light in the distance. Armin knew which path he wanted the traveler to choose. The empty one, the difficult one, the one that required courage. Hours passed as he carefully sketched every detail. When he finally finished, he stared at the drawing for a long time. Then he whispered quietly, "This is my direction." For the first time in years, Armin felt something growing inside him. Not fear, not doubt, something stronger, self-respect. And tomorrow, he was going to do something he had never done before. He was going to sign his name for the school exhibition. Not because he was confident, not because he was sure he would succeed, but because he was finally ready to choose his own direction. Part 3. The courage to be seen. There comes a moment in life when hiding feels safer than trying. But that same moment can also become the turning point that changes everything. For Armin, that moment had arrived. The next morning at school, his heart was beating faster than usual. The notice board near the main hallway had a big poster on it. Annual School Talent Exhibition, register your name. Students gathered around it, excitedly writing their names under different categories. Singing, dance, poetry, science projects, painting. Armin stood a few steps away from the crowd. His hands felt cold. His mind was full of questions. What if they laugh? What if my drawing isn't good enough? What if I fail in front of everyone? The voice of fear was still strong. But then another voice appeared in his mind. The calm voice of the old man at the bus stop. Will you allow fear to decide your direction? Armin looked down at his notebook. Inside it was the drawing he had spent hours creating the night before. The lonely traveler at the crossroads. 3 paths. One crowded, one dark, one empty but glowing with light. Armin took a deep breath. Then he walked toward the board. Each step felt heavier than the last. Students were laughing, talking, pushing each other playfully. Nobody noticed the quiet boy walking slowly through the crowd. Finally, he reached the registration sheet. His hand trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. For a few seconds, he froze. Then something inside him whispered, "If you don't write your name today, you will regret it tomorrow." Armin closed his eyes for a moment and wrote, Armin Khan. Painting. As soon as the ink touched the paper, something strange happened. Nothing around him changed. The hallway was still noisy. Students were still talking. Nobody even noticed what he had done. But inside Armin, everything felt different. For the first time in his life, he had chosen something for himself. The first reaction, of course, secrets don't stay hidden for long in a school. By lunchtime, several students had already seen Armin's name on the list. One of his classmates, Samir, approached him at the cafeteria. "Hey Armin," Samir said with a smirk. "Is it true you're joining the painting competition?" Armin nodded quietly. Samir laughed. "I didn't even know you could draw." Another boy joined the conversation. "Maybe he just wants attention." The boys laughed and walked away. Armin sat silently with his lunch. Their laughter hurt. It felt like a small knife cutting through his confidence. For a moment, he thought about removing his name from the list. It would be easy. Nobody expected anything from him anyway. But then he remembered the drawing, the lonely traveler, the empty path, and he realized something important. That path was never meant to be easy. The work begins over the next few days. Armin spent every free moment practicing. After school, he would go to the same quiet park. The wooden bench under the large tree became his personal studio. He sketched landscapes, faces, scenes from imagination. Some drawings looked amazing. Others looked terrible. But Armin kept going. For the first time in his life, he wasn't drawing to hide. He was drawing to express himself. Slowly, something began to change. His hands became more confident. His lines became stronger. His ideas became clearer. And with each new drawing, his self-belief grew a little more. A surprising supporter one afternoon while Armin was drawing in the park Someone suddenly spoke behind him. That's a very interesting perspective. Armin quickly turned around. Standing there was his art teacher, Mr. Rahman. Armin's heart skipped. He had never shown his drawings to any teacher before. Mr. Rahman looked at the notebook in Armin's hands. May I see? Armin hesitated but slowly handed it over. Mr. Rahman flipped through the pages carefully. Mountains, travelers, lonely roads, silent cities. Finally, he reached the drawing of the crossroads. The teacher studied it for a long moment. Then he smiled. Did you make this? Armin nodded nervously. Mr. Rahman looked impressed. You have something very rare, Armin. Armin blinked in confusion. What do you mean? The teacher closed the notebook gently. You draw emotions, not just pictures. Many students learn techniques, but very few can express feelings like this. Armin felt a warmth spreading in his chest. It was the first genuine compliment he had ever received about his art. Mr. Rahman continued. Are you preparing for the exhibition? Armin nodded again. Good, the teacher said. Because I believe people need to see this. Those simple words meant more to Armin than anything else. For the first time, someone believed in his talent. The storm before the event, but life rarely allows progress without challenges. 3 days before the exhibition, Armin faced a moment that almost broke him. When he arrived home that evening, he found his father sitting in the living room. The school had called his parents earlier that day. His father looked serious. Armin, he said, your teacher told us you were participating in an art exhibition. Armin felt nervous. Yes. His father frowned slightly. You should focus on your studies. Art is only a hobby. His mother added softly. We just don't want you to waste time. Their words weren't cruel, but they were heavy. Armin lowered his head. For a moment, the old fear returned again. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was wasting time. But then he remembered something important. Choosing your direction doesn't mean everyone will understand it immediately. Sometimes, you have to walk the path before others can see where it leads. Armin looked up and said something he had never said before. I understand your concern, but this is important to me. His parents were surprised. Armin had never spoken so firmly. His father didn't argue further, but the room remained quiet. That night Armin went back to his desk. He looked at his final drawing for the exhibition. The crossroads. The empty path glowing in the distance. And he realized something powerful. This drawing wasn't just art anymore. It was a message to himself, that no matter what happened at the exhibition, he would no longer allow others to decide his worth. Because real self-worth begins when you stop waiting for approval and start trusting your own direction. Part 4. The day of the exhibition. Some days in life look normal from the outside, but inside, they carry the power to change everything. For Armin, the day of the school exhibition was one of those days. He woke up earlier than usual. The sunlight had barely touched the rooftops of the town, but Armin was already sitting at his desk, staring at his drawing. The crossroads. The lonely traveler. 3 different paths. It was more than just a picture now. It was his story, his fear, his courage, and the biggest decision of his life. Armin carefully placed the drawing inside a protective folder and packed it into his bag. His hands felt slightly shaky. His mind was full of questions. What if people hate it? What if everyone laughs? What if my parents were right? Fear was still there, but something stronger had also grown inside him over the past few days. Determination. Today, he wasn't just showing a drawing. He was showing who he really was. The Hall of Talent. When Armin arrived at school, the atmosphere felt completely different. The main auditorium had been transformed into an exhibition hall. Colorful decorations hung from the walls. Tables displayed different student projects. Some students were tuning guitars. Others were practicing speeches. Parents and teachers walked around observing everything. The air was full of excitement and nervous energy. Armin walked slowly toward the painting section. Several canvases were already displayed. Bright landscapes, beautiful portraits, detailed city scenes. For a moment, Armin's confidence dropped. The other paintings looked so polished, so professional. His drawing suddenly felt small, maybe even childish. He almost turned around to leave. But then he remembered something the old man had said. The real question is not whether people will laugh. The real question is whether you will allow fear to decide your direction. Armin took a deep breath. Then he walked forward and handed his drawing to the exhibition coordinator. Within minutes, it was placed on a display board among the other artworks. Under the painting was a small card. Artist. Armin Khan title. Choose your direction. Armin stepped back and looked at it from a distance. For the first time, his art was no longer hidden in a notebook. It was out in the world. The exhibition would be open for several hours. Judges would walk around and observe every project. Students and visitors would vote for their favorites. At first, Armin stayed close to the painting section. People walked past his drawing slowly. Some stopped. Some didn't. A few students whispered while looking at it. Armin couldn't hear what they were saying. Every reaction made his heart beat faster. Then something surprising happened. A younger student stopped in front of the drawing. The boy looked at it carefully for a long time. Finally, he asked his friend, "Which path do you think the traveler will choose?" His friend replied, "The empty one, because that's where the light is." The younger boy nodded. "That must be the hardest path." Armin heard their conversation from a few steps away, and suddenly he realized something amazing. People were not just looking at the picture. They were thinking about its meaning. The first real test later in the afternoon, the judges began announcing some early highlights. Several students received praise for their projects. Music performances, science models, photography. The crowd clapped loudly each time. Armin stood quietly near the back of the hall. He tried not to expect anything. But deep inside, a small hope had begun to grow. Maybe his drawing had touched someone. Maybe his message mattered. Then one of the judges walked toward the painting section. It was Mr. Rahman, the art teacher. He stood beside Armin's drawing and began explaining it to the audience. "This artwork," he said, "represents one of the most important struggles every human faces. Choosing a direction in life." People moved closer to listen. Mr. Rahman continued, "Notice how the crowded path represents society's expectations. The dark path represents fear and uncertainty. And the empty, glowing path represents courage, the courage to follow your own truth." The crowd studied the drawing more carefully now. Armin felt his chest tighten with emotion. For years he had hidden his art because he believed nobody would understand it. But now, people were actually listening, thinking, feeling something. The unexpected moment as the evening approached, the judges gathered near the stage to announce the top selections. Students crowded around excitedly. Armin stood quietly near the back again. He tried to stay calm. The host picked up the microphone. "Today we have seen incredible talent from our students. Music, creativity, innovation, and powerful ideas." Then the host began announcing the winners in different categories. Third place, second place. Applause filled the hall again and again. Finally, it was time for the painting category. Armin's heart started racing. The host read from a card. "Third place goes to Sarah Malik." The crowd applauded. "Second place goes to Ahmed Tariq." More applause. Then the host paused for a moment. "And first place," the hall became completely silent, "goes to a painting that reminds us that sometimes the most difficult path is also the most meaningful." Armin held his breath. The host smiled and said loudly, "First place, Armin Khan." For a moment, Armin thought he had heard wrong. The crowd began clapping. Mr. Rahman looked directly at him and nodded proudly. Students around him turned to look, some surprised, some impressed, some confused. But Armin didn't move. He just stood there, frozen. Because in that moment he realized something powerful. Winning the competition was not the most important thing. The real victory had happened the moment he wrote his name on that list. The moment he stopped hiding. The moment he chose his own direction. And suddenly, Armin understood a truth that would stay with him forever. Self-worth is not given by others. It is discovered the moment you decide your voice matters. Part 3. The courage to be seen. There comes a moment in life when hiding feels safer than trying. But that same moment can also become the turning point that changes everything. For Armin, that moment had arrived. The next morning at school, his heart was beating faster than usual. The notice board near the main hallway